Right. Hello and good evening. So first of all, to the people at home who are just joining us by Zoom now, can I just check you can see and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, is that okay? Is the volume okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, well, unfortunately you can't see the other people in the room, but we have another 10, 12, 15 people here, something that level. We did have more for the viewing, but a few have scarpered early. But yeah, we did have about 20 people who just watched the film. And as I was telling everyone, this was originally shown Zoom on Sky History on the UK. In the UK and has been available since. Actually, the version we saw, I don't know if you saw the Sky History one or the link I've sent you, but the link I've sent you has got an American voiceover, and the version that was actually shown in the UK on Sky had a British voiceover. But I never spotted that before. Anyway, we are going to see if there are a few questions, and we have a panel here from the Rosemarkie Caves Project. We're all on the committee, and all of us were heavily involved in the famous find, and and Sam as well is joining us on Zoom, so hopefully Sam you'll be able to chip into as well. It's great joined us. So that's 5 of us from the project here, and I think us 4 sitting here are all NOSAS members as well. So, is there anyone who has any thoughts, observations, questions that they want to kick off with?
Well, some
yes,
I'm probably told them no, I'm not. But at some point in the past, somebody told me that work had been done to work out where the victim, we can call it that, had actually been brought up and come from, and that was done by the Jones teeth or something. Is that true? And that wasn't mentioned in the programme, and that's
yes, it was. Yeah. So Alan's just asking about. Sorry. I'm just, for the benefit of the people on Zoom, I'm just repeating. Alan Thompson's just asked about the evidence we have for where the man was brought up and where he came from. And yeah, so we do have isotopic analysis. And actually, Kate Britton, who did a NOSAS talk for us nearly a year ago now, was interviewed on the video, and she did actually say he was like local. Maybe kind of skipped over that bit quite quickly.
The reason I asked was that I felt that I'd heard before, like a year or 2 ago, that we had been Viking, or was that just speculation at the time?
At the very early stage, when we got some preliminary results back, there was a suggestion that he was Syrian, which rather exciting.
Oh, that's from the DNA.
And from the DNA, and then we got some more information, and then it became less exotically Rosemarkie.
Yeah, I've never heard Viking before, I must say. I mean, certainly when we got before we got the isotope analysis back, I think that's probably why when the story originally broke, we didn't call him a pit, because we couldn't be certain where he was coming from. But the isotopic analysis seemed to confirm it was most likely.
Thanks. I'm sorry I was moved about that.
No.
We were very careful to always say he was of the Pictish era.
Yes.
It was quite interesting that when we made the initial find, we had no dates, we had no nothing. I remember a group of us sat around the table, probably in Eric's library, discussing what did we want him to be. Did we want him to be medieval or whatever. And I think the conclusion we came to was whatever we got would be interesting. And he duly came back as about AD 500.
I think we were very pleased with that. That's my memory of it. Anyway, because he was in the deepest deposit in the cave, we didn't know. You know, he could have been much older, potentially. We knew he was probably at least Pictish from the position. But he could have been much earlier potentially. And actually, I think we discussed that, and we, because you know, Pictish stuff is more sexy basically, and we were very much hoping he'd come back with a Pictish name.
We also had a debate as to what to call him. And I think there was a suggestion of Hamish. We settled on Rosemarkie Man, which I think was actually a good choice, because that seems to have caught people's imagination.
Yes. Well, it was Hamish, Fergus, or Angus.
Yeah, I think we were quite serious about that at one point, weren't we? Yeah. I think we made the right choice.
It mentioned in the film that in an adjacent cave there was evidence of metalworking. What was the evidence you did?
Yeah, so just for the benefit of Zoom, the gentleman in the audience is sorry, I don't know. Sam. Hi, Sam. Sam was asked about the evidence for metalworking in the caves. Eric, do you want to field that one?
Well, a little bit, as much as I know. There was in another cave evidence of metalworking, but also where he was, there was evidence of metalworking, quite serious metalworking, smelting. But and the big thing is we don't know the relationship between the metalworking site where we found remains of bellows and so forth, and bars of charcoal. And there was no distance from that, but some evidence that there was some sort of screen or a wall, or a wickerwork wall between where he was buried and the metalworking. But whether he was before the metalworking, with the metalworking, or after the metalworking, I think was very difficult to discern. And whether he had any relationship with metalworking. I still think he did. And this idea he was well developed upper arms, was he a blacksmith? Now, I've mentioned this in another lecture, blacksmith was a very ritualistic thing. And, they were revered on one side, but perhaps if they were the wrong type of blacksmith, or as they said, he made somebody a duff spear, they done him in.
I believe we did get radiocarbon. So just to answer the question as well, there was metal work going on in that cave, that specific cave, as well as other adjacent caves. And we did get a date from the adjacent metalworking, which came back slightly later than Rosemarkie Man. I think it was round about, it was the 700s.
Yeah, it was 100 years out. It was sufficiently far away not to have been absolutely contemporary.
But
that's what we found, but whether he was associated with other metalworking, which the dating we got for the metalworking was later than Rosemarkie Man.
But did they know he was there? This was the big question.
They had respected the grave. They put this wickerwork up within.
Some kind of screen.
Yeah, there was a screen between, sort of hiding him, if you like. Although he was under animal bones and then under sand
And cobbles.
and cobbles on top.
Well, cobbles, right. So, yeah.
But when the preservation is remarkable, but he's in sand, it's in nice alkaline conditions. So there aren't many good Pictish survivals, and that's probably maybe even one of the best.
Well, I think I was saying there was a video podcast that some of you might know about that me, Bob and Rosemary were interviewed for, which seems to have gone a bit viral. But we were talking about it in that. And at the time, I had some correspondence with Shirley Curtis Summers, who's worked at Port Mahomet at the human remains there, and with Adrian Maldonado, who spoke for us recently, who's a bit of an expert on burials and early medieval burials. And both of them seem to confirm that there were no known Pictish skeletons any better preserved than ours. I think Adrian mentioned one at London Links, which is pretty good, but not that well preserved. And there's several at Port Mahomet, which again are fairly well preserved, but not that well. So we think he's the best.
Every bone is there. Every bone.
Including the one thumb bone we didn't find the first year. We went back the next year and we were missing one thumb bone. and we stood there and looked down and fixed this thing up. That's it, just lying there. So we took a photograph of that and sent it off to Sue Black, who emailed back and said, "Yep, that's a thumbnail."
So that got reunited with him.
Yeah, but what the program does, of course, do is it is very much Rosemarkie Man, and that's it. Whereas the project over a period of time has looked at a number of caves, and you know, we're right that we've got a whole lot of things. We've got metalworking, we've got quite a few other interesting things. We have a poleaxed horse, which we found. There is a calf skeleton under a little kist, which is a bit mysterious. There is a big raft of herring scales, which nobody has any idea what they're about. Some sort of industrial process. So there are a lot of other things to do with Rosemarkie Caves, but inevitably, of course, that program is about Rosemarkie Man.
But I should add, Bob, that these other things you mentioned are all different dates. They're not,
Yes.
it's not the same date.
No.
Just to say, I mean, the animal bone got mentioned, and actually, that's something I think came off particularly badly in the program, because there were two patches of butchered animal bone directly on top of the skeleton, one on his face and one on his arm. And we radiocarbon dated them, and they came back more or less exactly the same date. We think they were deposited on the skeleton. And when the bones were examined, they included a number of different butchered animals, including several different cows and a horse. So this is one of our justifications for thinking that at least if he wasn't killed ritually, the placement had some ritual element to it, because there seems to be some kind of fixed event. That's what it looks like. I mean, it's very deliberate that these animal bones are there, as well as the big stone.
Is this a celebratory feast to celebrate the life of the man as part of a wake, or to celebrate that they've done him in?
Well, they're just trying to hide the evidence by finding all of the animal bones.
Well, this is funny. I've been, so the podcast I just mentioned, there's all kinds of comments coming in. And some people have mentioned the animal bones to them and said, oh, did they just put the animal bones in there to hide the smell of decomposition? But as I say, these are discrete patches. There's one completely just covering his skull, like that shape. And it's full of different butchered bits of animal from different beasts. It seems very specific and a lot of trouble to go to if all you want to do is to disguise the smell. As I answered one of the comments, why wouldn't you just dump a whole rotting carcass on top of it if that's what you wanted to do? So, but I guess it's possible.
Or indeed chuck him in the sea,
Yeah.
which is only about 20 meters away.
Yeah. Any more thoughts, questions?
Any observations on the film, you know, which you see, because as James rightly said, the film was, you know, it's TV, it's not archaeology. I mean, I've seen the film 3 times now, so it'd be interesting to see what, you know, those who hadn't seen it before film.
I quite enjoyed it, especially when I expected.
I found it sort of only really interesting because of the noise and the people and the places. Otherwise, it was very slow.
I found it very interesting, but I also find these programs incredibly repetitive when it comes down to their dramatization. You think, what, really? Again? How many times has that poor chap been clobbered on the head?
Yeah, I agree with you, Sheila, absolutely. And that is a feature of these programs. You get the same things repeated over and over and over again. Now we're about to solve it, repeat. Now here's the next bit, read. And Rod is now coming up with the conclusion, repeat. You know, and it's just like hammering you, basically.
It's
one
one
of
of 6. It's one of 6, and they are very formulaic.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are, aren't they? Yes.
Programs. We were in good company. We had Erzi the Iceman from Austria, Italy, we had Tullen Man, we had an archer from North Berwick,
Berwick, yeah.
and a rather entertaining find in a cave in Idaho, which had a body that had been decapitated, and the arms had been chopped off halfway up the upper arm, and the legs had been chopped off halfway through the femur. That was a Mormon, turned out to be. But yes, it's very much a case, once you've watched program 6, you see witness 1, witness 2, witness 3, suspect, suspect, suspect. And yeah, they were fine. But that's what you get. I mean, I think the program I would certainly personally was quite pleased with how it goes until they have to have a verdict. And they have to have we've got plenty of questions, but you know, there is no definitive answer.
Absolutely. I mean, I did think they had Gordon on there, Gordon Noble, and they had Kate Britton, and they had Sue Black, and I think they're a good choice of people to have on there. You know, and I thought they let Kate and Sue speak and go through the actual data they got, which I thought was good. And at one point, I liked the bit where Kate won't be kind of pushed into saying, "Oh, he's a prince" or something. She goes, "Oh, we can't tell that. It just might have been more high status." You know? So I think there were definitely good bits of it. I mean, probably the standout bit for me, actually, or one of them, is the weapons bit in Eden Court. You notice that. And, you know, right from when Sue Black originally did the talk in Cromarty back in 2017, when the story broke, the idea was it was a fighting stick. You know, all the injuries, apart from the final coup de grace at the top of the cranium, were, you know, most likely with some kind of fighting stick. And actually, the metal-topped spear thing he had at the end seems to fit the bill perfectly. So I thought that actually added something for me.
I think we should also mention Tootie King, the other co-presenter, along with Rod, because Tootie King is very famous. She's the woman who discovered Richard III. She's identified Richard III. You've seen the programs in that. She was on television recently with something else, and she's a lifestyle. She is really a top-end person. So they have good people on the program. I mean, Rod, I met for like, spent like making coffee in my kitchen. The day before he did in Florida, this is February in Scotland. He wasn't quite adjusted to the conditions of Florida. But he was a really nice guy. I mean, if you asked what he did, you would have said he was a medical consultant or a smooth accountant, you know, who could sell you all sorts of things, rather than a homicide detective. And he told me some gruesome stories of things he'd been involved in the States. It was just unbelievable.
The day we filmed down at Lerney, the weather was atrocious. It was very cold, the snowstorm. For those of you that know Lerney, we didn't even take a vehicle down the road to where we normally park. We parked at the top and walked down because we didn't think we'd get back up again. So I think some of the drone footage was redone on a better day. The drone operator is a man from Aviemore who has a BAFTA for drone filming.
So they really did get experts.
Yeah, he did all of it, did Taradale as well. I think Taradale looks fantastic.
Yeah, what was very interesting, I was saying to James, seeing the drone footage of Taradale, there's a lot more of it in this program than the original one. This has obviously been edited, or the original one had been edited out quite a bit of the drone sequence in order to fit presumably a time scale to get adverts and all the rest of it. So not only was a different voiceover tonight, there was a lot more drone footage of Taradale.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, it is a few minutes longer. I seem to remember it was without the adverts, it was 46 and 47 minutes, the original showing, and this is like 51 or 52. Yeah. So it looks like when it was shown on TV on Sky, they edited it to make it fit, basically.
Do you have a copy of the drone footage of Taradale? Because obviously you have an interest in that.
I do. No, I don't. Because initially, as I said, in the first version I saw, it was like just second, you just saw a flash of the roof of Taradale, And if he didn't live there, he wouldn't have known it was Tandem. But tonight it was totally obvious where it was. So I saw a lot more tonight. So that's new to me.
The intro to all the programs is the same intro as you saw on that one. So when you see the program on Tullen Man and the one on Earthsea, you see James every time.
Not sure that's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, just about the filming, I mean, as you can probably imagine, I mean, the day we filmed down at the caves, we were down there 5-6 hours. It was a long time, you know, and everything, you know, far more footage shot. So it was heavily edited. I mean, there were, and the director there was a female director, I can't remember her name, but she was very much in charge, and she was very much telling Rod what was happening and what he was going to say. And there was a very definite plan for the different witnesses and who was going to talk about what. And there was obviously a whole planned out shape to the thing. You know, because every time I tried to mention Sue Black or the injuries or ritual stuff, or I said, no, we're coming to that later. No, you know, you just stick to your bit, you know.
They also had to edit out Fort George doing firing practice.
But any other filming like that for something like BBC Landwood or Scotland Outdoors, or we've done some cave things for BBC, the crew has usually been a presenter and a cameraman come sound man. This lot turned up with a director, with Rod. There was a film cameraman, a sound man, a still cameraman, a drone operator, a couple of runners. It was really, and the producer. It was really quite a big operation.
It was quite surprising because because Lang would have been down and filmed in 2017 when we were actually digging the following year after Rosemarkie, and that was very much more a shoestring kind of thing. You know, there was just literally just the presenter and a couple of people. You know, so then we were kind of talking, wow, this is a bit.
I mean, the filming in Tarragona was one whole day, from midday to 8 o'clock in the evening. Then the next time was 8 in the morning to almost midnight.
Steve was in the church in Rosemarkie. That was done after the
Same day.
And he was in the church with them for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
But the number of times that James had to walk up approaching the cave with Rod. So we didn't quite get that right. Can you do that again? Yeah, so a bit of experience in itself, just watching the film.
Yeah, and I had to lie in that hole 3 times.
You were even bigger, too big, much too big.
No, definitely. So I'm about a foot taller than him. So yeah.
I was going to ask that. How he's like
I think he was 5'6".
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 6'5". So.
For those of you,
Substantial.
I don't know how many people have actually been along to that cave, but after we'd done the excavation, Steve being Steve, when he does an excavation like that, he totally empties the place out to bedrock. So there's an enormous amount of material removed at great amount of labour. When we finished, we could try to make it look reasonably neat and tidy. So we took a decision to put most our spoil heap back in, but where Rosemarkie Man actually was around the alcove, you probably saw on the film, we left the bedrock, left it open to the bedrock and just a few stones around it, so you can see where he was. And we can indeed, as a party piece, when we go down there, get some casualties, some victim to lie down and demonstrate.
Yeah, we were last there just over a month ago. Was this guy from Aberdeen approached Rosemarkie Caves Project and does a podcast. He wanted to make a podcast, and it turned out he actually grew up at Hillock Head, which is just on the same coast. It's very, very close. And he filmed me, Bob, and Rosemary down there. Unfortunately, the wall, you know, there's, as you go into the cave, it was shown in the program, there's a wall, and we excavated it. That had been damaged, that had been vandalised when we got there in October. Somebody had broken, it's a mortared wall, and broken some of the stones off it and used it as kind of base for a fire just in the entrance. So that was
And
a
they're
bit
not,
disappointing.
not small stones either,
Yeah.
big stones. And you could still see where there were sockets for, where they had a gate across or something. That's gone.
You can't protect things like that. There was one of the excavations where we had to remove a squatter, or arrange for a squatter to be removed before we started. I think Simon had a quiet word with one of the policemen who wandered along and suggested to the gentleman that could he please evacuate the cave and take his belongings with him.
Where's Rosemarkie Man now?
He's in store.
This
Oh,
is
right,
so,
okay.
yes.
Yeah, yes. It's in a box.
But it's a
Or
Several
several
boxes.
boxes.
10 boxes.
Yeah.
If the question is where will he go, is we don't know. Because very interesting is that, you know, with, if you dig something up as treasure trove, the crown, I'll tell you where to put it. There is apparently no propriety in human bones. They don't belong to anyone. So I think Rosemarkie Museum would quite like that, but there's stuff, not enough space anyway. So at present they're in store.
But whoever takes him on would need to take the whole assemblage, you know, not just the highlight, everything we found in the series of excavation.
Shoe leather, the Victorian glass.
He may have descendants, of course.
I'm sure he does have descendants.
He may, yeah.
He may,
Yeah.
who can claim it.
Interesting thought.
Put an advert in the paper. So.
I'm suggesting rather we should do DNA testing of the entire population of Black Isle.
Yeah, I think so. It'd be an interesting project.
Interestingly, the programmer mentioned of the burial in Idaho where the body had been mutilated. They did do DNA testing, and they expected to find a few hits, and they got hundreds of hits because the guy was a Mormon.
And hundreds of lives.
Yeah, they also sold that murder properly. They found out who killed the guy. Whereas with the rest of the series, there's absolutely no way you can tell who killed.
You could do DNA analysis, couldn't you? on Rosemarkie?
We have done
They
DNA
have.
analysis.
They have.
And what did it show?
It was, we got a result somewhere. Can you remember the wording of it, Eric?
No,
It wasn't terribly detailed.
it wasn't. No, it's pretty waffly.
Oh, okay.
Well, I
It was
think
white, he's white Caucasian.
White Caucasians. Yeah, I think.
That's what Bob was mentioning. Originally, there was like this rogue result that came back saying he was North African. So, what? Seriously? And then they said, "Oh no, sorry, it was a mistake. He's just white Caucasian."
Did Jury King do the DNA?
No, she didn't. It was University of Huddersfield. It's on the Rosemarkie Caves website. There's the whole statement is on it.
Julie King only came in for the program. She had no part in it at all, but she was just one of the co-presenters. So we had the homicide detective and an expert on it.
The key person we managed to get a lot of help from was Sue Black, because when the skeleton was first found, being human remains, of course, got reported to the police. And I turned up the next day. Steve rang me up and said, "You have to come over." I wasn't there the day it was found by James. And there were two uniformed policemen, police car at the top of the cliff, two uniformed policemen and a CID guy. And a young Bobby who wanted to put scene of crime tape around it. And we worked hard on convincing him that Steve knew what he was talking about, and it was well below medieval levels, so it wasn't recent. But what did happen then was it got referred through to Crown Office Procurator, COPF in Dundee, and Dundee spoke to Sue Black So she got involved and it ran from there. And we got an awful lot of stuff done, which we wouldn't have had money for.
Including the reconstruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with Sue Black, he is very good looking.
It's old, he looks a bit
What was it? There's really two parts, well, three parts of the story. There's a discovery, there's the film, but of course there's the big reveal when the long hair and the flashing eyes was revealed on screen. That was done at Cromarty, as a lecture in Cromarty with Sue Black there. Simon Gunn did the story of the caves, and Sue Black came on. Because most people there knew nothing about it. We committee was sworn to secrecy for months on end. And then when he came on, of course, he came on just building up the skull, like we saw there, putting the bits on, and suddenly got the hair. The people,
Yeah. Steve firmly of the opinion that you don't want to go public before you've got the full story. So we did actually manage to, I don't know how we did it, we did actually manage to keep it pretty tight. There's the odd person outside who got inkling that we'd found some bones or something, but nothing like what it was.
Well, he was found in September, and I was at the archaeology conference in Inverness the following month. Several people came up to me about it. So I heard about it. It was, you know, so obviously it had got out, but luckily it never got as far as the media. But I guess that's inevitable. You know, these things. You know.
but after the, what I call the reveal, the lecture in Cromarty with Sue Black, because that was a big event. She came all the way up from Dundee, drove up from Dundee, and straight back to Dundee the same evening. And there was a press release, which I did our side of it, and she did their side of it, on the bone side of it. We put this couple of press release together, which went out the day before via Dundee University. We obviously got a very good press release. It was in every newspaper in the country next morning, and I do mean every newspaper. The photographs of Rosemary in the Times. And what was interesting was to see the headlines. Obviously, the serious newspapers took it very seriously, but the red top papers, we had Brad picked, Game of Bones.
Yeah, the Daily Mail one had a huge picture of Mel Gibson in his blue painting.
I did like Rod's comments about pigs being naked. He said in Scotland.
Yeah, it's such a shame that they showed those two awful pictures of what I think is man and woman.
Yeah, these are very famous pictures. Like when I was lecturing, the pigs, I used to start with these two as well, quite interesting, to say to people, this is not what the pigs are.
Okay, any more thoughts, observations, questions? Anything come in online, Roland?
No, I checked online, but obviously people can speak like humans.
Yes, yes, very clearly.
Nothing was said.
Anything you want to say, Sam?
I thought it was really interesting how many people I knew on the programme. It's obviously such a small world and the kind of historical, archaeological world in Scotland. And I really enjoyed that they had Hamish and Paul MacDonald on. Hamish really knows his picture stuff and he's really into his leatherworking. His whole process is really interesting to see, and I think that's always really good for providing context for what we work with. And then, as you said, Paul's insight was just really, really interesting. So yeah, it was good.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, I mean, two people missing here who really should be mentioned. Obviously, the Simon Gunn who started the whole project way back in 2006, and Steve Birch, who was, you know, has been our director of excavations, and certainly couldn't join us tonight. And then also, I should probably mention Mary and Peter Ammer as well, who was heavily involved back in the project as well. So they've all made a significant contribution. But you've got the B team here. Okay, well, if that's everything, I want to thank you all very much for coming along, both in person and online. And yeah, get out there and find some more skeletons.